Underwriting support for this program is provided by the Eureka Teachers Association's School Board Liaison, Philip Middlemiss. Thank you.
So, report out of closed session. Acting board for 20 days.
On items C1, C2, and C3, there was no action to report.
And any adjustments to the agenda?
No.
And I guess we need the pledge. So Pam will lead us.
Ready? Begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So no adjustments to the agenda.
No adjustments.
And student representatives report. And hearing none. Superintendent's report.
Okay, good evening. I want to start off with welcoming our interim principal for Zane Middle School, Dennis Scott. Dennis' most recent administrative experience was the Enterprise School District. Prior to that, he had several years at the Chico School District. He has had experience both at the middle school and high school, and I'd like to ask him to stand up as we welcome him to our district.
Great to be here. And I'm more native.
He's been on the job for 3 whole days, right?
Yes.
I also want to say that I had the opportunity to attend all 4 elementary back-to-school nights. Parents and children attended at all of the sites. At 3 of the 4 schools, they had a barbecue. In visiting classrooms, I was impressed with the presentations offered to parents by their teachers and the exchange between parents and their child's teachers. Information was provided to parents about everything from core instruction to homework to behavioral expectations. And I noticed in every classroom that I went to that when parents had questions, they were listened to and the teachers were responsive. Staff support were on hand to help and involved throughout the evening. Parent volunteers were helping too, with sweatshirt sales and backpack sales and everything else. Principal started out the evening and continued to be available. Anyway, I just want to say that how much I enjoyed getting out. I think I went into every classroom at all 4 of the elementary sites, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2. It was really, really nice to see back to school opportunities. Also want to let people know we received a communique from a former Eureka High School student who commented that participating in the Eureka High School pathways has helped her adapt to her new surroundings. In addition, she said that by taking advantage of the pathways at Eureka High School, she has experienced a taste of what she liked and what she didn't like. She is thankful that she was able to complete a 4-year goal rather than just finishing the general education classroom. It's always nice to hear from our Eureka High alumni, and congratulations to Eureka High School for offering our students those opportunities. The last day for students who have not yet had their DTaP shot, which is the pertussin immunization, is September 23rd. We've had clinics held both at Eureka High School and Zane. Zane is down to 68 students without the vaccine, and Eureka High School is down to 175. I didn't find out about Joe, but I know you're just down to 20. So considering, I think at the last board meeting, we were up into several hundreds. I think staff has done a phenomenal job reaching out to parents about what their students still needed. We have also been pretty darn clear for several weeks now, or maybe even months, that come the 23rd, if their child hasn't been immunized, they will be asked to come to school and pick them up. And hopefully run them right down to the health department and get them their shot. I know the staff has worked really hard getting those students their vaccines, and just want to recognize that. And under the direction of Rich Lentz, we've been really, really trying to get all the kids immunized. But if you think we have 2,000 secondary students, and we're down to less than, or about 200, It's pretty darn good. And then just to update on the positive behavioral intervention and support teams. Each elementary school has gone through their initial training as a team on September 16th, I believe it was. The next training for the teams will be September 28th, and it's just a reminder that PBIS teams will develop evidence-based behavioral interventions into an integrated continuum that enhances academic and social behavior for all students. So we have been moving right along with having that be a K-6, institutionalizing at K-6, and we're well on our way. Just wanted to give you guys the update. The teams are composed of classified and parents and certificated and other staff to really build that support for moving forward with these behavioral expectations of kids and supporting them to do what they should do so that our schools are truly positive place for kids to be. And with that, that's my superintendent's report.
Board members' reports. Wendy?
I was able to attend a number of the back-to-school nights. I'm sorry I missed a couple. And I went in as many classrooms as I could, but I want to apologize to any teachers who I missed. There were many. This is, I think, the first time that so many back-to-school nights have been on the same day. I think we had Lafayette and Grant on the same day. Alice, Bernie, and Grant, I think it was.
Yes.
And Zoe. And I didn't get out to Zoe at all, but I'm going to visit her shortly. I wanted to comment that the PTAs the barbecues were awesome. It was really nice to see the families come together, and I think that food brings a lot of people out, and it was just a really nice time, and all the teachers were mostly all smiles, and the kids were all smiles, and it was a good evening, both nights. And I'm probably going to help Judy over here with her, her board members report. I ran into Judy at a number of back-to-school nights. She did get to Lafayette, Grant, and Washington, and she enjoyed them very much. It says great down here. Let me see. You want this? Or does this one?
I'm asking her on the next agenda. We're going to have a discussion about master schedules. And I would like some additional discussion regarding this thing. And then this.
And I'm just going to read part of this. At our next meeting, Judy would like to request that on the agenda we have the schedules for EHS and Zane. And she would like to include a discussion of the team approach at Zane and EHS. Are all courses, programs, pullouts, etc. being looked at in regards to how it meets our mission goals and our mission goals of a college-going culture and student achievement. And I think we briefly talked about this last meeting, and it's a good idea. Also, Judy would like us to write a letter of support for Swim Possible. She'd like that on the next agenda as an agenda item.
We're not supposed to be whispering.
She's asking if the board members are in support of a letter of support for the Swim Possible program that she discussed at the last board meeting. And I think we all had indicated that.
Okay.
Yep. I've got one that you gave me, so
Okay.
I've got that drafted up.
Okay.
Board agenda.
She's
Fran.
such a trooper.
Oh, you want me to talk
You
or?
could be
Fran,
home in
board
bed.
reports.
Nobody would fault you if you were home in bed. Thank you for being here.
I didn't get to any of the back-to-school nights because this is my first week to drive after 3 months of not being able to drive. So I do intend to come to every school on my own. I particularly want to go to Zane. After 3 weeks, my granddaughter still loves it, so that in itself
Saying something.
means that we're going to have a great year. And I'm looking forward to spending time there, and I also want to spend some time at the high school. And pretty soon I'm going to be driving the bus. Boy, not driving is awful.
Hank?
I wanted to go back to something we brought up and asked for a report on earlier from the high school, the Cal Perkins Service Learning Senior Project. Who's responsible and how is this going forward? And so if we can get a report on that.
Next meeting?
And otherwise,
Okay, I ran into Jerry Scott yesterday, and he wanted me to definitely announce this. He wasn't able to be here tonight, but the annual Hall of Fame Awards Dinner induction for Eureka High School will be on October 13th. The doors open at 6:30 and the program starts at 7. And this year the inductees are Ernie Cunningham, Jim Kale, Steve Cobine, Gina Luigi, Lockie, and Casey Lyle. And this is like the fourth one, I believe. I've been to all of them, and they're a lot of fun, and the food is pretty good. So that's October 13th. Doors open at 6:30, and the program starts at 7 in the Eureka High cafeteria.
Didn't realize they served it.
Okay,
I've been to all of them.
we're coming to public comment on non-agenda items. And I need to read this comment, the statement. This is the time designated on the agenda when members of the public may bring before the board matters that are not listed on the agenda. Legally, no action or significant discussion can take place about a matter not listed on the agenda. Therefore, board members and district staff members usually will not respond to public comments. And as printed on the agenda, individual speakers will have 3 minutes to address the board, and each topic is limited to 20 minutes total. I have 2 green sheets that were turned in, and so the first one I'll call is David Dement.
Good evening. I just wanted to come here tonight in person and thank you, board, for your hard work, your creative solution to helping the teachers with our benefit package. I also want to thank you that responded to my emails. I read them carefully and found them helpful to understand what was going on, and also I learned that one of the things that you can't do while something's being negotiated is to talk about specifics. So I got that also. And I'm mostly hopeful that we can continue this kind of positive dialogue in the future when other issues arrive, as other issues will arrive. And so again, thank you and good night, and I'm gonna go get ready for tomorrow. Thank you very much.
The second speaker is Mariah Knutson.
Hello, my name is Mariah Knutson, and I am the varsity cheerleading coach that was let go last week. Although I don't know why I was let go, and I know that it is a personnel issue that is a subject the board will not hear. What I would like to discuss is responsibilities as a hired employee, lawsuits, and declining enrollment. I feel that the 3 are all related. On the first day of high school, I was handed a syllabus for each one of my classes. My teachers explained what was expected, grading policies, the material to be covered, disciplinary actions, as well as office hours and how to contact them. When I was hired 3 years ago with Eureka City Schools, after the initial paperwork, fingerprinting, and TV clearance, I was handed nothing. Sure, I was given a key to the gym and told that Mr. Peterson was my direct supervisor, but nothing more. This is an area I strongly feel needs to be looked at, not overlooked. I also feel this is where Eureka City Schools has opened themselves up for a potential lawsuit. I know that the district has a policy on how to handle a student under the influence, Yet I had never been told as a coach. When in the situation, I handled it the best I knew how, yet later reprimanded for it and was told that it could be a potential lawsuit. I have had many parents help on an occasional basis with transportation, continual basis, I'm sorry. However, yesterday I was told that anyone transporting a child to a school event on a regular basis needs to have a fingerprint clearance. The bill went into effect January 1st, 2011. However, I was just informed on this. This too could have devastating effect on the district and if something has went wrong. I was a cheerleader all 4 years at Eureka High School. When their Mr. Jack Lincoln was the athletic director, he made it a point to be at all meetings with the parents. He would periodically check in with us and see how everything was going. When asked why Mr. Peterson did not do the same, I was told that that was the difference between a salaried employee and a stipend employee. I asked for clarification and was told that it was a matter of priority. An athletic director responsibility should remain the same regardless of the pay. Yesterday, I obtained the job description of both athletic director and a coach at EHS. The last update to the list of responsibilities for an athletic director was in May 1991. Number 2 on the list reads, provide leadership in the selection, assignment, and evaluation of athletic coaches and staff members. I have been told that there was a series of meetings regarding mistakes I have made and was never included, nor was I ever evaluated. The job description for a coach with EHS was last updated July 1st, 1968. On the list, number 7 reads, work closely with administrators and other coaches or the director of athletics for coordination of the entire athletic program. The communication that I have had with Mr. Peterson has been limited. When I have had questions, I would call him. At times it would take several days for a return phone call. I often asked if there was anything I should be aware of or changes from the previous year. The answers were always vague and indirect. Nothing regarding policies or protocol on my part as a coach were ever mentioned. Again, this is an area I feel needs improvement and change. As far as declining enrollment, I have an analogy that I feel will help. We all know that the U.S. is in an economic crisis and that retailers are suffering. Sales and discounts are offered in hopes of gaining new business. As a consumer, I have a choice where to shop. It's not the sales or the coupons that attract me, but the overall quality and reputation of the store that will get my business. Does the store provide a superior product? Are the store policies clearly posted and followed? Is there a competent employee accessible for assistance? Is there a member of management available if need be? Are you treated with respect as a valued customer? Parents do have a choice where to send their child to school. Whether it is public, private, chartered, or homeschooled, parents will make that choice. You see, the 24 athletes on the Eureka High School cheerleading squad were my priority. The administration's decision not only affected me, but the entire squad and their families. The amount of support that I have received has been overwhelming and much appreciated. So many of the parents are disappointed and upset with the Eureka High School administration. Their feelings and viewpoints are shared with extended family, co-workers, and friends, as well as members in our community. I feel that this situation could have an influence where parents make that decision on where their child will attend school. Overall, I feel the importance of the communication and guidance of the athletic program needs to be strongly reviewed. Although coaches are at-will position and do not need a warning in order to be let go, I feel coaches need training and knowledge of the district's policy and guidance of their position before problems build up and end up in situations such as mine. Thank you.
Are you giving a copy of that letter to the secretary? I couldn't hear a lot of what you said.
I'm really sorry.
I couldn't understand it, so if you give a copy to her, then we could read it.
Sure.
It would be very helpful. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that wishes to speak in this section, public comments on non-agenda items? Okay. We'll move to the consent calendar. Any questions, comments, corrections? For discussion. So we'll hold J11 for discussion. Do I hear a motion to approve the rest of the consent calendar?
I so moved that we approve the consent calendar except for J11, which has been pulled.
I'll second it.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, vote no. Okay, item J11.
Let's see. And I presume I should be addressing Dr. Lance
I'll start
first.
to try to answer, and if I cannot answer anything, I would like Mr. Jordan to help out.
The first thing on page 11, mark page 11, is the school site council is correctly constituted and formed. And then the sheet that was given to us as to who's on it only indicates that there's 3 parents to be elected. That there are not, those 3 parents are not on the site council at the current time. And that would invalidate it being correctly constituted site council, if I read this correctly.
I'm looking at page 13.
Correct.
On page 13, it shows the parents and community students, the names of 2 parents. Looks like 2 students,
3 to be elected.
and then 2 parents to be elected. The requirement is to have 6, because there are 6 staff members, there should be 6 parents and community members. So your observation is correct.
Then we cannot certify this.
We will, as indicated, make sure that the school site council is properly formed, and then take appropriate action as soon as possible, and come back to the school board at the next meeting as soon as we've completed that action.
I would like to point out that the whole point of the site council is to get parent input on budgetary matters, and especially in where the money is going on a budget program like this. And that entire step has been skipped.
So we're tabling J11, and it will be brought back on the next consent agenda.
I had one other question about it.
Oh,
So
go ahead.
Rick may want to address this. On the section on page 16, under pathways, down at the very bottom, the AP training for German and Spanish, and how that fit into the pathways, and you can address it next time.
Happy to address it now, and the earlier concern. We have a foreign language pathway,
Okay.
and like any of the other AP trainings that are included here fit very cleanly under the math school or the language arts school.
It wasn't aware of the language, or the foreign language pathway.
Correct. So, and I will say that this budget has been in process with the site council since early spring of last year, and was held over, and the difficulty is we have kids graduate. And I thought we had a quorum, and I'm wondering if someone's name got left off the list. But the site council makeup was clearly established the correct way, and I'll have to go back and look at the notes because obviously we would not have voted had we not had the quorum, and so I'll have to go back and check whose name was not on here.
Well, it's dated September 7th that the vote was taken, so it's probably a new year. And
Correct. Yeah,
go
I
through
was
the
at the
whole
meeting.
process.
Okay, so moving on to item K16, discussion action, certification of unaudited actual financial report 2010/2011.
And I would gladly turn this part over to Paul Ziegler, our CBO.
I know.
Will you use the microphone? Part of the problem.
Here.
Yeah, that's part of the problem.
First thing I'm going to try to see if I can operate, this looks like a touch screen. We'll figure that out. Thank you, Lori. What we're presenting tonight is the unaudited actuals, basically our ending information from 2010-11, and along with that will be some comparison to the budget you saw previous to this, which came along with the adopted budget, the estimated actuals that came from that particular report. So I will, with no further ado, I hope take you through this. It works. It's a good thing. Here's a quick recap of what we're going to go over tonight, more for your edification as you're looking at this on your own, and I won't spend a lot of time there. Here's a quick overview of the total general fund for 2010-11. Again, this compares the unaudited actuals to the estimated year-end actuals. A couple areas that I'd point out. In terms of federal revenue, we had two areas that we didn't receive revenue as we expected to. One, Title I, we had to set up a receivable for that, so that money will still be coming into us. And the other is our Education Jobs Fund, and that is a reimburse as you go. So the fact that we underspent or held on to some of those funds that we'll spend in 11-12 means also that we didn't pick up some of those revenues. And I'm going to bring you all the way down to the bottom in terms of our ending fund balance. We came in about 1.1 million over what we had anticipated with the estimated actuals when that report came to you in June. The majority of that can be traced, at least in terms of the restricted numbers, again to the Title I that we held some money over for 11-12 for expenditures, and also for the Ed Jobs Fund. Again, that will be completely depleted and spent in 2011-12. I'm going to move on to the general fund and the unrestricted portion, and I think this probably tells a better picture for us, because it really does deal with those areas that we have a little bit more flexibility in how we spend those monies, not the same amount of restriction that goes there. And as you look down the columns, you'll see, especially on the revenue side, we came in fairly close to what we had anticipated there. Came under by about $23,000. I'm jumping down to the next block, which is total expenditures, and there we were underspent relative to what we had anticipated in early June by about $293,000. Again, I think in terms of the overall budget, that slight variance comes in fairly close to where we would have expected to be. Our overall net increase and decrease in the ending fund balance was $647,000, and that in turn is the difference that we see from period to period. This takes all of our ending fund balances. It actually starts with the beginning balance at the start of 2010-11, shows the revenues and the transfers that came in, the expenditures and the transfers that went out. The column next to the end there on the right shows the net increase or decrease in terms of each of those various funds. I've also starred the four funds: General Fund, Adult Education Fund, Special Reserve, and the Capital Outlay Reserve. Those are funds that are either unrestricted or partially unrestricted. Those are areas that we have a little bit more ability and flexibility to spend funds than with some of the other ones, but I still wanted to give the entire recap and accounting. Beginning balance at the start of the year was $15.6 million with the revenues that we brought in, the expenditures that went out. The net decrease in terms of our overall fund balances was approximately $500,000, $479,000, and gives us at the end of 2010-11 an unaudited fund balance of just over $15 million. This further breaks down and shows the difference between 2010-11 and the unaudited actuals. That is tough for me to say every time. And the adopted budget and the change that occurred from that period of time. It also takes out a 3-year projection, and I want to be very specific as I talk about that projection. What we did is we took the multi-year projections from the adopted budget and overlaid the updated fund balances. In areas where we could, we went in and made adjustments for expenditures that we know already for 2011-12, or revenues as the case may be, that are already significantly different from what we had budgeted and what was approved with the adopted budget. I think a good case in point would be special education. We were looking somewhere $600,000 to $800,000 over what we had expected with our adopted budget. We know we're going to be spending at least that much more in 2011-12, so we tried to make some of those adjustments as we went along. I think the impact of all this, if you'll come down to the lower portion, there's a budgeted reserve level that's bolded there. And you can see that for our unaudited actuals, we ended up with a budgeted reserve level of 7.11, which is a good number to have. It actually was a little bit higher than what we'd expected as we adopted the budget, with a little less expenditure and a little bit more revenue that we picked up along the way. But ultimately, that's the reserve level that we're looking at. You can also see then the bottom 2 lines. The designated reserve includes the general fund designation for economic uncertainty and the special reserve fund ending balance. And those really are our 2 formal reserve categories.
I'm totally lost. I went through the binder you gave us, and I'm trying to somehow sync these things up with your presentation, and you're burying me.
So, Hank, if I can just, I'll go through for about 2 more minutes more, and then I'll stop and I'll pull up, and you can ask me questions, and I'll go back through whatever is a point of interest for you. So, I'll stick with the budget reserve level. We're at 7.11 as we end the year.
Where is that?
Right here.
You know, and that's part of the problem. I don't know if I can.
7.11.
There it is. Okay.
Where is it in your binder, you mean?
Well, I just found it on the sheet.
No, she wanted
3/4 of the way down.
I got it.
There we go. You've got it.
There you go. There we go.
And Hank, I'm sorry, I'm sitting here and thinking the same thing. It's really difficult when I can't point to the numbers with all these things that are up here, so Cheryl's going to help me. So let's try it this way. So we're here at the budgeted reserve level of 7.11, and that's where we ended our year in terms of our overall reserves, 7.11. And here are the 2 components that make up our reserve categories: the general fund designation for economic uncertainty and the special reserve fund balance right here, giving us overall reserves of just under 2.5 million. I'm going to bring that across this way perhaps. And here then is the projection for 11-12 in terms of what our reserve levels are going to look like. And we actually see an uptick to about 8.6% of reserves as a percentage of our total expenditures and transfers out. Taking on the projection to 12-13, we're at 7.4%. So we're starting to trend down and see our reserve levels drop a little bit. And by the time we get to the end of 13-14, we're down to right below what our mandated level at 3% is, or that's been waived, but 3% is generally going to be the area that we want to at a minimum level. So,
Now, in those figures, do you have anything recorded for possible mid-year budget cuts?
these do not include the mid-year budget cuts, so that's another pressure that will be out there, is the potential of that $1.1 million reduction, if indeed that trigger kicks in and we see that budget reduction occur. So, a lot of numbers to get down to that bottom line of saying what we're seeing over that 3-year projection is our reserves start to dwindle as other funds are paid out, as our expenses continue at the level that we have budgeted for our multi-year projections, and bring us down to that 3%, that 3% reserve level ultimately. Okay. This then is a quick chart to show some of our enrollment trends. The top line up here, the first week enrollment, and that is exactly what it says. This is a count of students in the seats in the first week of school, and you can see the trend from 2,809 to 910, 10, 11, 11, 12, and we're seeing a decrease and a decline during that period of time. I think the good news is that we see that decline start to slow as we go from 10, 11 to 11, 12. And I can't tell you if it's going to continue to go like this, or if we're going to start to see an uptick, or if it levels off, but that's at least the historical trend that we're seeing right now. Key to attendance, that is the ADA number that happens sometime in March of 2012, and that is really what drives the majority of our revenue numbers there. So that's why that's an important figure. Again, you see that decline occurring over that 3 to 4 year period. As we get out to 2011-12, we aren't at that point yet. So this is a projection based on what we see the enrollment to attendance percentage. We just applied that, and we would anticipate an ADA of 3,645 or so for 11-12.
And this includes the big hit at Zane?
It does, yeah. So, and Hank, when you say that, I think that's probably, if there's good news in the decline, that's probably the good news, that even with that occurring, or if that hadn't occurred, perhaps we would have seen an uptick for the first time in a few years. So maybe that's cause for optimism there. So yeah, sure. So in addition to the numbers, I just wanted to point out some of the critical dates that are coming at us, as well as some of the other factors that we're going to have to deal with in the upcoming year. So in terms of the dates themselves, we're working on budget update right now. We work on that all the way through October. And basically by the end of October, we will have our budget back in place, and we'll have made the changes and have brought it back up to date. Past that point, we'll continue to work on the multi-year projections. And by the time we get to December 15th, our first interim report will be complete and ready to be reviewed and accepted, hopefully, by the board. November 15th, 2011, that's the first official revenue forecast that comes in. That comes from the Legislative Analyst's Office. And at that point, the LAO will tell us how they think that the state revenues are going to look as they project it out for the rest of the year. And if you're watching any of the news right now, you'll probably see that through September at least, we have not been tracking well against what the forecast has been, and that translates into the likelihood of those the mid-year cuts, or that trigger being enacted. 2010-11, as we move into December, our audit report will be back to us. The auditors actually show up a couple of weeks from now and spend a week with us. Looking forward to that, of course. I mentioned the first interim report, and then probably the really significant date in terms of the potential of mid-year cuts is when the Department of Finance comes out with their revenue forecast, and that is due out on December 15th. And based on that forecast, that is what will tell us if indeed the triggers are going to be enacted, or if we've been able to dodge that bullet for the year. I'll say again, all indications are at this point that we're going to fall short of those revenue forecasts, but there's still time, I suppose. Sure. And then this is the final slide, the potential revenue limit trigger. If indeed we fall below the forecast, that would occur on February 1st. The potential impact to us is the 1.1 estimated $1 million reduction in revenue. Some of the other issues that we'll be facing throughout this year and going forward are the ongoing cash deferrals. Cash flow continues to be an issue that we need to watch very carefully. As our funds are depleted in other areas, of course, that has an effect of impacting our cash flow negatively. The deferrals themselves that push monies off into future years before we collect them, those two together have a potential damaging effect to us. Talked a little about the declining enrollment. Another factor is that by the end of the year, our ARA funds will be depleted. What we have left now is the Education Jobs Fund, and we rolled over approximately $600,000 from 10-11 into 11-12 to use to support salaries and positions, but that will be gone by the end of 11-12 unless there's another stimulus or ARA-type package that comes through. That will be the end of those one-time federal funds. Talked about the increasing special education costs. Health and welfare benefits continue to go up. We see premises and maintenance issues that we're going to have to deal with this year and in the years going forward. And at the end of that all, it equates to dwindling reserves, which you saw on the one slide that took us down to about 3% at the end of 13-14. So that's it for the PowerPoint. And I'll come back here and Hank, if there's any questions or anybody else, I'd be happy to answer them. I'll try to.
Where would I find the income or the pot of gold from selling real estate?
That would be in Fund 40.
Which is at what page of the binder?
Page 4 of this packet.
It starts on page 107. And from the unaudited actuals, it shows us with about a 1.2 million ending balance there.
Okay, which page are you on? 107.
Page 108.
And that is folded into the reserve that received lending.
That's correct. So the budgeted number here shows that being fully spent down, in fact shows a negative as we get into 11-12. As we overlaid it on our own pro forma there, we said that we would probably have about $800,000 left at the end of 11-12 in terms of different expenditures. It depends on what other projects we decide to take on and the like, but that's our estimate right now.
Does that include the income from Jefferson School?
Does not.
It does not.
The spending down of that account is because of the remodeling of Lincoln.
That's correct. That would be the other project that this anticipated in terms of taking care of all the rest of those funds for this year.
I'd like to know where the money from Jefferson is in here.
The money from the sale of Jefferson is included in Fund 40.
But it's not reflected yet? Or it is reflected?
Oh, I'm sorry, you said Jefferson. I was thinking forward to the district office sale. Jefferson is in here, yes, I'm sorry.
So, okay, basically that's already spoken for and done.
That's correct.
Now the district office is not.
The district office numbers are not in here, that's right.
Paul, if I were looking at your handout, would that be page 4 where it says Fund 40?
That's correct.
So that the So when you were talking about the 800,000 projected in 11-12, that's reflected on that line.
That's right. And the projection that we have, that would include the increase with the sale of the district office, so. It's not reflected in the unaudited actuals because it hadn't actually occurred, but we expected it's going to. So when we overlaid our own pro forma, we put that number in there.
So Judy squeaked to me on the sale of Jefferson, that 600,000. Where does it show up on page 108?
I'm not seeing it, or I can't show you the line items.
Is it folded into the undesignated amount, which is Fund F, Fund C? It has the same number as 40.
So again, I'm sorry.
On 108, is it under Fund Balance Reserve where it says C, undesignated? Has it been, is that where you would have?
It is part of that number, yes.
Okay. So there was already money in there, and then the 600, or the money from the sale just went straight
That's
into
correct.
that. So unless we saw what it was like a year ago, we then couldn't see the difference.
That's true. That's correct. You wouldn't have seen it from a prior period.
Okay, and then she has another question about where's the money going out for the Lincoln remodel?
The money that we sort of set aside, for lack of a better word, that the board designated from the adult ed funds, that we identified in a board meeting that this is our priority when we were able to sweep it.
The money going out for Lincoln, actually, if you look at the 11-12 budget, that's part of the capital outlay there.
What page?
That's on page 107.
And it's under what? Capital outlay.
Capital outlay.
We've had $3 million in ending fund balance from the adult ed, of which we swept $1.5 million into the general fund, which wouldn't show up in the capital outlay fund. So then we swept $1.5 million into the capital, or we left $1.5 million into the capital fund. And it only shows $1.5 million, so it's not. Don't see the other 600,000.
I'll have to check, but I'm pretty certain that we did put that money in there. So, and I don't know when the sweep occurred. Was that in 2000?
Like 2 years ago, or 3 now, when we first had that flexibility, when the
Okay.
yeah.
So that would have been in a prior period, and it wouldn't show up here.
It wouldn't show up, but we kind of expected to see it in that.
Should still be there. Yeah.
I think it had kind of carried over for a while, but I think as property issues came up, I think some of the well, her concern is have we spent it in maintaining our property over the course of the last couple of years. I think that's the question.
And Judy, I can't answer that offhand for you, but I can certainly report back and give you a better accounting of how that came together.
I think all of us on the board, and I don't want to speak for everyone else, but we're very concerned with tracking of money on the sale of real estate.
Yes.
Sure.
Because there was some definite reasoning behind that sale, those decisions, and I wasn't a part of them. But it was one of my motivating factors to be involved in the board.
Mm-hmm.
And not being able to track them is a major concern.
And what that money is
where it's
being
going.
spent.
We're seeing the reserve dwindling, and that's part of the reserve, and that was the whole point. We didn't want it to evaporate.
So let me bring that back to you, and I think I can track both the sales and any of the sweeps of previous monies that came in, and we can track it all the way through.
That would be great. And then put it
I'm
down
putting
at about
We'll put it in,
7th grading.
we'll put it in very simple. We'll put it in very simple.
Form.
Okay, so she has another question about a $97,000 request.
I'm sorry?
A $97,000 request? No.
A donation, yes, yes. So that came into the general fund.
We had that. I didn't know anything about that.
So I'm not sure. I don't remember what the request was about.
I guess
A man left it in his will.
so are we going to
When was this?
just let that be spent? Actually, take that money and designate it.
Okay, so are we just going to spend it in the general fund, or are we going to designate it to something special?
When did he leave it?
Just got it.
It's been
We just got it in
got-
August.
Yeah,
I
it's been
never heard-
relatively recent. We received notification, I think, in very late spring, maybe, I don't know, May, June-ish, that that a person had bequeathed us a sum of money. At that point, we didn't know what it was. And then I think we got a check, it might have been in August, and it was about, I think it was 97, 94, somewhere around those. And it was put in the general fund, and it has not yet been identified as to what it should be spent on. There wasn't any indication in the will as to what the person would like the district to consider. Sometimes when people bequeath things, they'll say put it towards Eureka High, or put it towards, this school, or towards that project. There were no indication of what that person would want us to spend it on, so we haven't spent it on anything. We've put it aside until we kind of identify.
Notification that we even got it. Well, I didn't know anything about it, that we were given this, and from whom.
I don't recall whom. I'd have to go back and look. It was a name I know I wasn't familiar with.
Was it Woods, was it?
The board requests more information on this request and maybe recommendations from staff as
As
to
to how
what
we'd
we
like
would
to
like
spend
to
it,
do
yes.
with it.
And staff has talked about it, but we wanted to get a better sense of what our needs were before we did make those recommendations. And yes, we had planned on making them and bringing them forward. We have some ideas and we have some needs. We were also looking at trying to do a little bit more investigation as to whether or not we can determine who the person, we know who the person was, but maybe have a better sense of what their connection to Eureka City Schools were. So if we can find out and kind of get a sense of, well, based on their knowing a little bit about them, we think this is what they might want us to do, but we haven't been able to do that yet, but we'll continue to dig further. But at this point, it hasn't been designated in terms of how to spend it, because we really were wanting to be,
It doesn't show up in here anywhere, right?
it's just in the general fund,
It wouldn't come out in this
because it's not
document.
restricted.
I think it came in 11-12, so it would be part of the unaudited
yeah.
Oh,
actions.
okay.
Wrong year funded. And I think part of it, Hank, if I can, and I know certainly the HCOE, when they have responded to us of what their concerns are on occasion with our budget is and if you look on page 3, we still are spending more money than we're getting in. And I know.
That's
So
my
I
concern.
think what there are still certain, and we've done, in my opinion, a very good job over the last few years trying to really reduce our expenditures to be more in line with what our revenues are. And we continue as we've made program adjustments and we've made staffing adjustments and we've tightened up on the things that we feel we can, those really hard decisions, including school closures, to try to balance our revenues with expenditures. But at this point, while we're closer, it says $63,000 is still being spent more than we're getting in, as an example, under the general fund. If we don't continue to try to bring that in alignment so it's balanced, we would have to dip into those reserves, if that makes sense, which is why
Well, the projections show that the reserves are dipped into.
Because
They're
we-
declining.
Correct,
But
because
not
we
as
haven't yet made as many of the, we still have to make additional reductions to our expenditures, or that would be the outcome. So I guess it's still like, and we're still spending more than we're bringing in, and we still have some decisions we need to make.
So I have a question on the mid-year cuts, the potential 1.1 million. If I understand it right, these aren't just a one-time cut where it's only going to affect this year, but it becomes part of the baseline for the coming years. So if we're budgeting out 3 years, it's a potential of a $3 million hit against our reserves as of June 2014. And then another $3 million hit.
And that's right, it does. It rebenches the revenue limit when that occurs. Just to follow up quickly on what Leanne had said, for our total general fund, we had a structural deficit of about $900,000. Put more simply, we spent $900,000 more than we brought in.
So I think what it's saying to us is we need to continue to make some of those really hard decisions that we've been making, so that, Hank, we don't continue to have to dip into those reserves, because that's all we have, otherwise, to balance our budget on.
So we got a report from the state about the mid-year budget cuts, trigger again, that for the first month or 3 months, the state was already $500 million in the red.
Right.
And that was as of September?
I think it was as of maybe even August, and then September looked a little better.
Through August, and there's conflicting reports. You have different people that are tracking these things, but although September was not as bad, it still wasn't pushing us in a positive direction.
So let's keep getting monthly updates as we get them from the state as to where it looks
And
like
just
they are.
For my clarification, I think the first trigger's pulled at over, if we hit $1 million or more, and then the second trigger, which would affect us, is 2. I mean, not 2 billion.
It's 2 billion is the
Sorry,
first
not million, I wish.
I could do that.
I know. Don't start zeros, I'm glad.
We
That's
start to
why
be
we have
impacted
CDOs.
at 2 billion.
Right. So with the 500,000, they're already halfway to the first trigger potentially being.
And so we're only affected at 2 billion? We're not affected, Eureka School District isn't affected at 1 billion?
No.
So 2 billion becomes the important.
Yes.
And that's 2 billion by November 15th or December 15th?
So as of December 15th, what they'll do is they'll forecast the revenue forward. So it's not the actual revenues that it's based on, it's based on the forecast itself. So they'll look forward at that point, say it looks good, looks bad, and
Look forward to the next June 30th?
they'll go through the rest of the fiscal year.
So it's 2
correct.
billion for a 12-month period.
Right.
So for 500,000 for 3 months.
We're on
It's
track.
not looking good, yeah. Any other questions? Any discussions questions by anyone in the audience? And so I think we need a motion to approve the unaudited actual financial report for 2010 to 2011. Are you making a motion? Judy Squeaks, so moved.
I'll second it.
There's been a motion and a second, and no further discussion. All those in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Paul. Resolution 11-12-003, adopt GAN limit.
And I'm going to turn to Paul to help give us an explanation, so he's not right off the hook yet. He explained it to me today, and it was very helpful. So hopefully he can give us the same
Sure.
easy
So,
explanation.
the GAN limit basically limits the growth in appropriations in the state of California. The state of California, school districts and local governments can make. Started in 1980, 81 with the Jarvis GAN initiative. And in essence, what it says is that district appropriations can't exceed a computed limit. And that limit has to do with that base year of actually is 78, 79, with adjusted for inflation and for changes in attendance. And in essence, it brings in the proceeds of state and local taxes, and or computes the state and local taxes, and through that computation comes up with the maximum amount of state and local tax revenue that a district is able to bring in. As we look at districts across the state, people are generally not at the point where they're going to worry about hitting that GAN limit. But if we were to, the good news is that we could pass a resolution that would increase our GAN limit. And if the district increases its GAN limit, that all flows up into the state's GAN limit. So there's kind of an overarching number there. So if we were to increase our number by $10, the state would have to decrease its number by $10, so that on a statewide basis we would stay under that particular limit that's computed. And I won't say it's perfunctory because it has to be done every year. And although it sounds like it may put a cap on the revenue that we can expect to receive or that we're able to receive from the state, again, we have that ability to go back in and say, for whatever reason, more revenue came our way than what was expected, and by resolution we can increase what that GAN limits us to at this point.
I don't guess there's a lot of districts needing to raise their GAN limit.
There are not many that are needing to do that. And the state is not in danger of exceeding its GAN limit at this point in time.
Good to know.
Okay, this is a discussion action item. Any discussion, further discussion? Any further discussion by any of the audience?
Move for approval.
I have a motion and approval to adopt Resolution 11-12-003, adopt GAN limit 2011-2012. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Beginning of the year, school year report. Part 2.
Part 2, and maybe a part 3. Anyway, we are wanting to bring forward to the board some information on 2 items, in particular transportation, which is why Dan is here today. Previously, we've reported to the board on things like how our bus routes are going and how our numbers are on the buses, and looking at what hardship cases that we have, or maybe
Nothing.
Oh, I'm sorry. And just sort of some overall information on how we're doing in terms of the area of transportation. What I can say is our transportation works incredibly diligent to get kids where they need to go when they need to go there. In particular, with some pretty darn hard times of not being able to always find bus drivers. So I have Dan here. I thought maybe he could give a brief overview of transportation in Eureka City Schools and answer any questions that the board may have about that. Yes, please.
Well, it's been a busy year. And as Leanne said, I always traditionally give you numbers, so I am going to give you a few numbers, just so that you have an idea of where we were in the past and where we are now. In 1995, when I started with the district, we were running 9 regular bus routes and 2 special education routes. This year we have 6 regular bus routes and 3 special education routes. Last year, on the first week of school, we transported an average of 605 students. This year, we're averaging 549 students. We have 1 less bus on the road this year than we have last year. and that's one of the large buses. One of the main reasons that we have one less bus is because we have 2 less bus drivers. We've had bus driver positions open since October of, let's see, 2009. October 2009, and been unable to acquire any bus drivers. We teach classes. We have a trainer who just in June, at the very end of June, taught a class for 13 prospective bus drivers. Out of the 13, 3 went to work for other districts. 2 applied to our district. 1 was unable to pass the CHP test, and 1 is starting training this weekend. So we hope to at least get 1 completed bus driver out of that mix. It's a long process. As you can see, they started in June, and here we are in September, and they're just now getting to the CHP portion of it. There's a lot of work that goes into becoming a bus driver. And I think that one of the reasons why we're not able to get more bus drivers is because of the time and effort and money that it takes to get licensed, the amount of responsibility that they have when they're driving 70 or 80 students, and the number of hours that they're able to work. A typical bus driver works, 4.5 to 5 hours a day. So, we're going to continue to do everything we can. As a matter of fact, we came up with this little poster that we're placing at Safeways, Ray's, the Job Mart has some. Sandy last year set some up down at the Job Mart. And basically, it just says, if you're looking for an exciting career and you love kids, come and talk to us. We did have at the suggestion of several people that this was a great job for retired persons or parents that want to only work a few hours a day. It's also a great job for students who are going to see our Humboldt State University. Works well in their schedules. So, it may not be a job for someone who's looking for a full-time job where they can feed their family, but it is a good job for someone who's looking for part-time work.
What is the pay of a bus driver?
Our current starting wage, I believe, is $11.56 an hour.
$11.56 an hour.
Yeah.
I also wanted to give you other numbers that we've started giving you a couple of years ago, and that was the number of students that we're transporting that are hardship, the number of students that are homeless that qualify for those programs. Currently this year, we've got 33 students that are listed in our hardship busing right now. A large majority of those hardship busing students are students who live in a particular district. For example, we have students that live across the street from Ellis Fernie but can't get in the district because there's no openings at Ellis Fernie. So they're forced to attend the school where there is openings, and if that happens to be Lafayette, then they expect us to bus them to Lafayette. So we have quite a few of those. We also are transporting right now 47 students that qualify under the homeless education program. And under the homeless education program, any student that is homeless gets to continue in the school of residence that they were attending when they became homeless for the remainder of the school year. So these are students that are mostly living at either the Serenity, the Multiple Assistance Center, Pine Hotel, places like that. So these are students who, most of them are living in some sort of an assisted living center. And those kids need transportation because they've already got a whole bunch of things on their plate. They don't need the issue of how am I going to get to school. So, and most of those parents obviously don't have the means to get to school. So we do try to make that a priority. The problem that we're having this year, though, is being perfectly honest with you, we've got several students that are living in the multiple assistance center, which is the MAC down by Target, that are attending the Alice Barney School, and we just don't have a bus that we take. So right now, the students are being given vouchers by the McKinney Grant folks through the Marshall Family Complex. We hope that that gets better. If we get obviously, if we get another driver on the road, we'll be able to start transporting some of those students. But right now, we just don't have choices because the buses that would normally transport those students are their special ed buses. And right now, those special ed buses are running about a 50-50 population. It's 50% special ed, 50% homeless. If it gets much more than that, it's very difficult for the special ed students to be successful in their driving school. So we don't want to get to that critical point. Other issues that we're facing with busing, some are good issues. Most of you know that we received 2 buses through grants. That was, I believe, about 200, if I'm not mistaken, about $267,000 worth of grants that we received to purchase those buses. We also have received so far $60,000 from the North Coast Air Quality Management District for particular filters for our buses. And we were just, as you know, at the last board meeting, you approved accepting 2 more grants for another $30,000 for particular filters, which will put us at 100% of our fleet will be certified as being meeting the new air standard for the state of California. All our buses have to meet that standard by January 1st of 2015. So we will be meeting it by the end of the school year. And a large part of that is due to those grade ones.
How many natural gas buses do we have?
We have 2.
We still just have 2.
We have 2. Natural gas came, it did its thing and it left.
Okay.
John Deere got into the natural gas market because they thought that was the thing in the future. So John Deere invested heavily in the engines, developed a wonderful engine. We've had very few problems with ours, but they saw that people were going to liquid natural gas, and then they went from there to the hybrids, which are basically the ones like Humboldt Transit has. They're kind of a battery-powered backup system, so they only run on fuel part of the time. When that happened, lots of transit districts switched over to those kinds of buses and started making those purchases, and so John Deere immediately ended their business and got out of the CNG bus.
Well, is that the coming way for
Cummings-
buses to be the half battery, half gas? Is that,
Yes.
are there school buses that are made that way?
Yes.
No. We don't have it.
We don't have any of those, no. The other thing that's becoming popular again is propane. And the big drawback for the compressed natural gas bus is the fact that you have to have a fueling station for them. So we had to actually purchase 2 fueling stations. And they're basically mini compressors that connect to a gas line, and instead of compressing air, they compress gas and then pump gas into the tanks. Propane, you can get propane almost anywhere. Our natural gas buses can't go out of the area because they can't fuel anywhere else. We did send a bus, as an example, 2 years ago. We sent one of our buses to Santa Rosa and back because we were told that it would make it within its limits. And it made it back to Fortuna before it ran out of fuel. And then, of course, it's not like you go take 10 gallons of natural gas and put it in a bus. So we had to have it towed from Fortuna back to Eureka. And then it took 37 hours to get that bus even enough fuel in it to where we could use it the next day. Because they only pump 2.2 gallons per hour. So natural gas probably isn't going to be a big thing. But so I think, the future is going to be the hybrid buses, propane buses. One of the things with the new buses that I wanted to mention is we had the old Crown coaches, which were 90-passenger buses, and everybody knew them and loved them. And, we had lots of black smoke belched out, but they held a lot of people. The new buses only hold 81 elementary students and 56 high schools. And that's because they're required to have seatbelts. And so you can only put 2 high school students in a seat. And if you've gotten any phone calls from parents, you've probably heard that, oh, the kids are sitting 4 kids to a seat, and they're sitting on each other's laps, and they're not. But I get that every year because the buses are crowded. Every one of our buses is pretty much at capacity. Typically between junior high and high school, we're running 62 to 64 students on every bus, and that's a full bus. When you look down the aisles, you don't see anything but faces. So that's not going to go away because under the law, all new school buses will be required to have those seat belts. So every bus that we get is going to have less capacity than the current old buses, which don't have seat belts. So
how long will they let us use the buses without seat belts? Is there a limit on that?
There's no limit as long as they meet all the highway patrol requirements and stuff. And those buses are generally, in the state of California, the average school bus lasts 20 years. On the East Coast, they last about 10. That's because they have a lot of snow and they use rock salt to melt the snows and stuff. We don't have that here, so our buses last a lot longer. They're well maintained, and so it's not unusual to get 450,000 miles out of a vehicle at all. I wish I could get that out of my private vehicle, but I guess I don't maintain it well. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
I just want to say that we are so lucky to have Dan as our transportation person. He loves kids. He goes out of his way to help his kids, and he goes out of his way to help his bus drivers and all of his employees down there. We're very, very fortunate to have him.
And we also have great transportation.
Yes, we do. They're very friendly, except
we're all
you can't.
Starting to age.
But you can't, I like to wave at them, but I can't tell who they are because of the glass, and they sit too high, and by the time I figure out who they are, they're past. So I just wave, and if they know who I am, that's fine, and they don't.
They all know who you are, Fran.
They all know that great car, don't they?
Yeah, they know that car. Fran comes down to our office quite a bit to visit with us, and everybody's always glad to see her.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that it for your report?
We have an enrollment update. I think we'll make that brief.
Right. At your table in front of you, you should have a packet that has a list of teachers from Alice Burney on the front page.
It
looks like.
Wow.
Always so everybody has a chance to take a look at that. So what Cheryl did for us is to print out from Power School, I believe it was yesterday's enrollment by school, and you can see for the elementary grades, it's by grade level and by teacher. It shows the maximum numbers allowable in each class, and then the number that is actually enrolled. And we show for the secondary schools, we show by subject, by teacher, by period, the maximum number allowable in a section or course, and next to it, the numbers actually enrolled. So I'll give you a minute to scan through that, and then you can answer questions if you have any questions.
One off the top of my head, why is there a difference in the maximum allowed in one third grade class to the other third grade class?
We're looking at
There's a couple examples.
Wynn Clark at
Wynn Clark,
Ellsbury.
her maximum was 26.
Cheryl.
That's because we have to lower the seat count if there's a special ed student for pushing.
A special day.
Special day.
That's terrible. That's too many kids and too many classes, especially the younger kids. That's
Actually, that's the end, of course. So another question is, at Zane, we have a maximum of 33 students, and the enrolled numbers are like 22, 24, 25. It's 10 students less than.
That, I think when we talked about how we staff Zane, we staffed with, the projected enrollment for incoming 7th graders that we typically get, which we do not. And so it's primarily in our 7th grade classes. Our 8th grade classes are Zane or higher than that.
There are some of the classes that we intend to have with low enrollment, such as the strategic intervention and English language development. It is intentionally lower class sizes there.
But I think if you compare the 7th and 8th grade core, you'll see that 8th grade classes are higher. And, we will adjust to those staffing issues next year.
So one thing I see when I look at the elementary schools, unless there's empty classrooms available, it looks like if we get too many more elementary school kids, we're going to have to do something.
Correct.
More portables or open up another school.
Well, what we did do this year is we opened up another kindergarten classroom at Lafayette, and that's one of the positive things I think we were talking about earlier. Our elementary enrollment actually has been rising over the last couple of years. So our classes are pretty full right now. We do have space available if we need to add a portable. So we know, of course, that takes time. Or depending on how staffing ends up looking secondary, we might have to relook at what we do in our K-8 program.
So to get a new portable, what is the lead time? So if we wanted it by the start of school next year?
I think what I recall, if it's a new portable, you're talking about January. If you're looking at leasing or looking at an existing portable that we might have like at Worthington, for example, it wouldn't require as much. It also makes a difference as to whether or not there's a pad already available. For example, I think Ellsbury has existing pads versus a site that maybe doesn't have the foundation for a portable. So it kind of depends. But longest lead time is January for a new portable with no pad and reading everything for the following start of the school year.
So we're having a facilities discussion in December. Is this topic going to be addressed at that time too?
Certainly will be.
Judy says the cost of a portable is approximately $250,000.
Brand new. If you have water and everything else. We do. We have some, well, not laying. But we, with looking at Worthington, and I know that I think you just walked the portables today, perhaps?
Yesterday we walked the portables over at Worthington, and we have 2 of them that we're costing out whether it's worth it to move them or to purchase a new one.
But we did want to have you see those numbers because we do have a lot of kids in classes, and particularly at the elementary level, and in high school and 8th grade, then we'll work on 7th grade at Zane. But that was our update for enrollment. Give you those specific numbers and specific classes and who the teachers are and where they are by grade level. So, all right, let's get you guys that as well.
Thank you.
What is the last, the pages that are saying school service and then have lists?
I didn't hear you.
The pages that say school service and then have lists and then they say 116. What does that mean?
Go ahead. Mr. Jordan.
They're about the last,
Teacher.
oh, teacher aides? Oh, okay.
Okay. Moving on to L19, Board Policy / Administrative Regulation 3550, Food Service Child Nutrition Program.
And as we do on a regular basis, we bring to the board recommended policies as they need to be changed. This would be our first read of 3 food service policies. Arlene and I have gone back and forth, in particular looking at where it would say optional, as you guys know, and we've gone through this before. So if you look on page 35, where it talks about the food service child nutrition program, I'm going to go with what Arlene and I talked about, but if you have any questions, I'll probably defer to our food service person. An example, so like I said, on page 35, in talking with Arlene, her recommendation, our recommendation is that we keep the optional portion on page 35 so that it would read as indicated here. Because when it says optional, that means that we can either take it out or revise it, and we are in agreement with how it is currently worded. So we would recommend leaving it as is. Do you want me to go just page by page with the optional pieces? Okay, page 36. The same thing, the optional piece on that page is about midway through, where it says the district's food service program shall give priority to serving unprocessed foods and fresh fruit and vegetables. We'd like to keep that one in. We talked about taking it out, so no. We'd like to leave that optional paragraph in. On page 37, we would also like to leave in the option of reporting annually to the board on student participation in our nutrition program so that you guys can get a sense of how many students are eating our breakfasts, that are eating our lunches, and also to what extent our food service program meets state and federal guidelines. I can say that Ms. Lavia is incredibly diligent about making sure that we are in compliance with meeting the state and federal standards. And so she's constantly working on that as things change. So we would recommend leaving that section in.
Are we looking at anything on the energy, those energy drinks, like the school at Hoopa that their board just passed? They would not allow kids to have them at school. Because they have so much sugar and so much caffeine in them.
You're talking about right now, I think what you're referring to is like the Jolt and those kinds of
Jolt
high energy.
and Red Bull or all of those kinds of things.
Well,
is that anything that's
we don't
even
sell those drinks, is my understanding, in any of our at any of our sites. Kids do bring them to
well, that's
school.
what they're not allowing them to bring them, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
they don't sell them. They can only sell juices and this is at the height. This is their whole district that it was in them.
Right. No, I was aware of that.
But I think it's something that when I read it, I thought to myself, well, it's something worth looking at to see how we actually feel about it, and if it's something that in the future, and I thought about it when we were looking at food, so I think it's something to think about, because I actually was going to ask my doctor about it when I read the article. I thought I'm asking him about those.
Right. Yeah, and I would recommend that, you know, if the board does want to take a look at that, we'd have to look at more than just the high energy drinks, because students often bring hot cocoa to school, they bring caffeinated drinks to school. So it's a bit bigger picture, I think, than just looking at the energy drinks.
Doesn't each school site establish at the beginning of the year what is and is not allowed to be brought at school? Like, for instance, no gum, or no candy, no this, no that, and would that not be a site-specific type?
They could, because they certainly talk about other things that are okay to bring or not bring, but it would be, I think, pertinent to have board policies or regulations to back that up, if they ever question.
I just kind of like to have Arlene kind of do some thinking of looking at seeing what other, whether it's just the one district or whether it's.
For the energy drinks and caffeinated,
Yeah.
control on campus.
Yeah. Just to find out what the trends
They
are
say-
statewide.
According to the article, there were a lot of them there that were drinking them, and then they were so high in class that they couldn't get them off the scene. So I just think that we were at least talking about the scene.
Having been in this discussion before,
Have you?
yeah.
Okay.
We get into some parental choice issues here
Okay.
around on what they're putting in their kids' lunch or what they're giving them money to purchase. It becomes rather nebulous as to where that line is. And one of the things at my last site was the teacher upset that the kids that are drinking one of these energy drinks while he's, sipping down his double latte. It was a quagmire, and I did everything I could to avoid getting into the issue because it was going to create these very difficult conversations with people around these double standards, but also a monitoring issue over what was and what wasn't. Because a kid walks on with a blended drink from Starbucks and says it's decaffeinated.
Yeah.
Where am I then? Trying to make that distinction is difficult. And we've done some really good training with staff on those energy drinks that contain alcohol and identifying those drinks.
Mm-hmm.
And we had actually students, I think, present to the board last year to the project that they did, and they shared that with staff, and it was quite eye-opening and something that we were able to get control of very quickly. But the other one over these energy drinks is a tough one, because if a parent hands their kid a 5-hour energy boost thing.
Oh, it's just like getting the candy.
Yeah. Where do we draw the line?
Well, that's why I thought we should have because I wondered how they could actually get away, do it,
Yeah, that's a tough one.
especially in Hoopa.
Judy's wanting to point out that if we go with this new paragraph in this policy, it is replacing the old 3550. And she just pointed out, there's 2 pages of specific things listed on the old 3550. And the new one that we're replacing with doesn't have any of this
In
information.
terms of specific food that I'm not, I don't have
What
I
page are you
It's
on?
difficult, and I didn't do it completely.
She's not on a page right now.
But I'm just wondering if we need to do a more holistic look at the 3550s, because it seems like we're gonna lose the whole, the parts of our old nutrition policy where we said, it's already there, no caffeine, no candy sales, those things. And I wasn't finding it.
Well, the competitive food sales comes in a different
I
one,
know.
but that would be the candy sales, but it's.
I'm just saying in general.
Right.
And we have 2 separate discussions going on. One is what we will serve, what we will have available, it goes into vending machines and what's allowed to be provided in any way, shape, or form by the district. But it's a very specific,
Very
lengthy,
comprehensive.
comprehensive list, and she's not finding that it is here.
I would just hate to lose what we gained from that nutrition policy and what we're doing. Now, Fran's issue is a whole.
Right, but this is what we sell and what we provide, and what does that nutrition policy look like? And since this is optional, we can revise it to reflect district practice, we could bring what we like about the old into this one. Okay. So then we'll need to pull that one back and have that be part of the conversation next time. Yeah, discussion after. Okay.
Okay, so
So that, I was going to move on
We're
then
on 30.
to page 40, which is the AR for that board policy. But the rest were just regular mandated language that we don't really have options about. We just say, okay. The first one on page 40 is an optional, the first paragraph, and she's recommending that we leave it in. That we do comply with the National School Lunch and Breakfast Standards for Meal Patterns. And Judy, that may be where we can also put in the information that you're talking about. That, well, what is that? What are the standards and in what areas? Maybe put it in here. And I certainly know that the state menu planning that Arlene does has to make sure that it has all those different areas and that it meets the sugar content or look not to exceed sugar content. Make sure that's real clear. The salt content, fat content, calorie, protein, fiber.
It actually doesn't include sugar, but all the snacks and those items go through. We all, I go through those through the rendezvous. They're stocked at the high school and the ACES programs, and we don't sell any other a la carte items, so everything goes through the snack calculator.
Snack calculator. The snack calculator,
Yeah.
kind of tells you whether or not it meets the criteria for
Project Lean has it.
Okay. But maybe again comparing the two and see what we can pull up into this one. So then the next one is page 42. It's optional. It has to do with participating in the special milk program, and we don't participate in that, so the recommendation is to take out the special milk program language. We do participate in the breakfast program and the school lunch program, so that out. Page 43, there's two optional sections. The first section has to do with staff development for food safety, and we definitely recommend keeping that one in. We also would recommend keeping in our, documenting the log entries that we're maintaining, whether it's how cold the food is, how hot the food is, how long the food stays on the van, make sure that we meet all those compliance areas. And definitely Arlene wants us to keep those in too. Page 46. Oh, that's mandated, never mind. So the next one was page 52. Oh, wait, that's, we're moving into a different one, sorry. I just realized that.
Okay, so
That's it for L19.
So L20.
So L20, which has to do with the nutrition program compliance. So the majority of this is going to be mandated because it has to do with compliance. So if you guys want to just look at it, all of it, as you can see, is compliance, 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 all the way through. So there's no optional parts of that one. Who is the coordinator for? I would say that Arlene would be our primary coordinator for compliance with the nutrition program. What are you looking at? Oh, the uniform complaint procedures? That's Dr. Lentz. Okay. So if there was a uniform complaint that had to do with the food service, he would address it. I think that's what you're asking. He would address it, whether it's textbooks or food, because there's a variety of different things that fall into that. Okay. Right, all that stuff does. I don't think Dr. Lynch would want to do all that staff development.
Well, I would turn to Arlene for assistance on that, you bet. In terms of compliance monitoring and training and so forth.
I think he can designate, because...
Maybe you could repeat her question since because nobody can hear her.
The question is whether or not Dr. Lynch would have to do all these things, which includes training on laws, regulations, procedures, or whether he could designate who does the training. which would be designate Arlene to do that kind of training, for nutritional program compliance.
Can we change the way this reads, or is this,
It says the
it has to read this way?
So the following policy is mandated, it doesn't say optional.
Just as other compliance issues come up with curriculum, instruction, and program implementation, I designate or I assign duties and activities to staff.
Right.
So in this matter, I would certainly be working with Arlene. In fact, we are both scheduled to attend a seminar on this. When is that, in the springtime?
Springtime. Shake it.
Okay, good. This isn't brand new. Having a compliance person to ensure that we are meeting all the criteria.
I've not seen it before.
So Judy's asking, is this brand new, that this section has a specified itemized listing of what the coordinator is going to do?
Sounds like it's new.
And it's like a whole job.
I think as Leanne, I'm sorry, Judy. I didn't want to cut you off there. As Leanne indicated a few moments ago, under the general rubric or general title, Uniform Complaint Procedures, there's many issues, many programs, regulations that parents or even employees can file complaints about. And it would be my job to, you might say, sort through those and decide where they should go next when we receive a complaint. So this just adds one more to the list.
Thank you.
So are we ready to move on to board policy 3555?
Yes.
Am I correct in that what was the number on the previous one? It's going to come back for more discussion rather than on consent within nutrition?
Yes.
Oh.
3550.
Okay. And then this one also is going to come back?
L20, is there any further discussion on L20, or is it ready to go to consent? I think it's ready to go to consent. Yeah.
Okay. Board policy 5030, student wellness.
So on the student wellness policy, on page 52, which is on the bottom of the paragraph where, or the bottom of the page where it talks about to fulfill this requirement, the superintendent or designee may appoint. And what my recommendation would be is we put may appoint a district committee and to line through right here. Page 52. After, it's like a third of the way down.
Third paragraph.
So it says to fulfill this requirement, the superintendent or designee may appoint. And then it says a school health council or other district committee. I would recommend just may appoint a district committee, because we've had a district wellness or type of committee before, rather than a school health council. It's keeping in line what we've done previously in this district when we first looked at wellness policies. It doesn't, and it, again, the may means it's optional. It doesn't mean you have to do it. It's just that you may do it. And then on page 56, which continues with student wellness policies.
Judy's pointing out that the last paragraph on that previous page, then you need to also cross out the school health council committee shall advise the district when. Cross those out also.
Right here. The duties of, just cross out council, because it would be the duties of the committee. And, okay, there's two councils, so the school health committee and duties of the committee. We don't have any optionals. 55. And it says it's optional, but then it goes on to the next page, 56, and then the things on page 56 are what are optional. And the recommendation is that we keep those. It's things that we're doing anyway, so the recommendation is that we keep doing them. And we do a post.
So that would be brought back.
That would be brought back on consensus law. That would be the recommendation.
Okay. So that wraps up this section L discussion. Do we have a need for a second closed session?
Yes. Until a board member say yes.
Yes, no?
Yes.
Yeah, that's.
So we'll adjourn into closed session, but
I would like to make a comment. I can now see why our old board room was set up the way it was with the tables set. You cannot hear from here. You cannot see anybody. And if he sits forward, I can't see you at all. And so when we get whatever we get, in our new room, please look at how those tables, you know, we always said, well, they're funny the way they're set up, but they're set up so you can see everybody that's sitting at the table. And here you can't, and it's very, very difficult, especially if somebody has a soft voice. Like Julie had no voice.
Our recommendation, this is an opportunity to kind of practice with different arrangements to
this
really
is
find
bad.
one that we might like.
Cross this one off the list.
This one's out.
Check that one off the list. Okay, we'll do something equally as creative perhaps next time. See how that works.
so we'll be going back into closed session to finish discussions on items. I guess it could be C1, C2, or C3. Are there any public comments on those closed session items? Okay, so we'll be adjourning and we'll be reporting back out after the second closed session.
You can say here as long as say for the others.
I would just keep everything.
These chairs go.